Hello, and welcome to Roots and Branches, the Pinewood Alumni Podcast. Join us as we dig into the captivating stories and remarkable journeys of the alums who have walked the halls of Pinewood School. Through this podcast, we'll reconnect with our past, celebrating the diverse experiences, achievements, and memories that have shaped not only our individual lives, but also the legacy of Pinewood. Our alumni have spread their roots far and wide, reaching out into various fields, industries, and passions. So whether you're a current student, a fellow alumnus, or simply curious about the power of education, come explore with us as we uncover the inspiring stories that make up the lush canopy of Pinewood's legacy. In this episode of Roots and Branches, our guest, Kendahl Wallis-Lang from the class of 2014, a Pinewood alum, discusses her time as a student at Pinewood, as well as her involvement in basketball and science activities. Kendahl shares her transition to medical school at UCSD, the decision to specialize in OBGYN, and her upcoming residency at Kaiser San Francisco. She highlights the importance of mentorship and giving back to the Pinewood community. Kendahl also visits her alma mater to inspire students' interest in pursuing a medical career. Her story reflects the impact of a well-rounded education from Pinewood and the supportive environment that nurtured her journey to achieve her goals in the medical field. Welcome, Kendahl. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you.
So, Kendahl, you attended Pinewood from 5th grade to 12th grade. Can you share some of the highlights from your time here and things that you were involved with and some of the activities and the teachers that were most memorable to you?
Yeah, coming to Pinewood in 5th grade was cool because I got to experience a little bit of the middle campus and then all of the time in upper campus, which I think that 6th to 7th grade switch is a really fun time for Pinewood students. Some of my more fond memories from the middle campus were a lot of the sixth grade experience is really fun. You get to do a lot of fun trips. You get to go to Disneyland, and it was just a really good time. And I'm glad that I got to come to Pinewood on the earlier end to get some of that middle campus education. I think one of my favorite things from middle campus and touching on one of my favorite teachers at Pinewood was Dr. Lauer and the science classes that we had at middle campus. Absolutely loved it. I was involved in the science club after school where we do these little projects. I came to the summer science camps down at middle campus, which was a super great experience. I loved it. And I'm really glad that I got to be a part of that, which then led to coming into upper campus, where I think the main thing that I was involved in was playing basketball. So I was there for 7th and 8th grade. And that whole time, Doc was grooming me to play on the team in high school, which was definitely my highlight of my Pinewood experience. I'm still super close with all my teammates, and they're definitely still my best friends, which is really cool. And on top of that, just the Pinewood community. I think I am closer with my high school friends than most of my college friends are with theirs. And I definitely attribute that to the small community at Pinewood and everyone being so supportive and amazing.
Yeah, so you played varsity basketball with the girls' team at Pinewood in high school. Were you part of that team that won those championships, the state championships?
Yeah, I won a state championship my freshman year and my senior year, which was really cool. So my freshman year, we had that star-studded senior class, which was amazing. And then my sophomore, junior year, we were trying to make it back up there. We went to state my junior year, but didn't win, and then finished it out my senior year. It was the last year before the CIF added the open division. So we won both of mine as a D5 team, but it was so cool to be able to do that and to do it twice, especially.
Yeah, and you were the captain of that senior team. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was.
How fun. We still have a great basketball program at Pinewood. And I know one of the highlights is always the playoffs for all of our teams. It's wonderful that you got to experience that. But it seems like your love of science has been with you for a long time, because you mentioned Dr. Lauer down at Middle Campus. Did you continue that love for science? And then were there like a specific discipline that you leaned towards as you made your way through high school?
Definitely. So I did not take AP Physics, but I took both of the other AP Sciences that Pinewood offered. So AP Chem and AP Bio. I had AP Bio with Miss Hudson, and it was definitely my favorite class of all time at Pinewood. I absolutely loved it. I also took anatomy with her, which was really cool. We got to go to Stanford and see the 3D human anatomy model, which at that time was groundbreaking, a really new thing. And taking all those classes at Pinewood and having the flexibility to be able to do that, to take anatomy and multiple AP sciences was so cool. Definitely continued that on. And even in 7th and 8th grade, Miss Tyson was definitely one of my favorite teachers. I actually coincidentally ran into her at the airport a few months ago. And it's such a cool experience that you can run into your 7th and 8th grade science teacher in an airport and have them immediately recognize you and have that conversation.
Yeah, Miss Tyson is definitely still up there at Upper Campus, and her classroom still has, I think she still has a snake from,
Yeah.
I don't know, I think the snake is pretty old.
I believe that we got the snake when I was in 8th grade. So we didn't have it when I was in 7th grade, but got it in 8th grade. And that was a really cool thing. We'd hang out there in lunch sometimes just to watch the snake.
Yeah, I watch her sometimes feeding that snake, and it's pretty cool. That sounds wonderful. And so when you were doing AP biology with Miss Hudson, were there things that you really loved with that experience?
I was always more interested in the cellular side of things. I know AP Bio goes through a really wide breadth of topics covering plants all the way to human cells and organisms. And I definitely leaned more towards the cellular, molecular, human side, things that I could build up. And I also really enjoyed the overlap between what we were learning in AP Bio and AP Chem. So learning about things on like a cellular level and then learning about the chemical structures in the chemistry class was really cool to see how those things crossed over. And the same thing with anatomy, learning about the specific cellular processes going on in AP Bio, and then in anatomy, understanding how it all came together in the human body.
Yeah, it sounds like you really loved your science classes, because I can just tell from the enthusiastic way that you speak of all of those things. And so your sports experience and clubs at Pinewood, you talked about the long-term friendships that you still have with your classmates from there. Tell me how Pinewood allowed you to be able to keep friends from, gosh, I guess for you, 10 years, right?
Yeah, I think he's still my best friend. We met in 5th grade, so we've been friends since I was 10, 11 years old. And now I'm 27 and we still talk every week. My current roommate down in San Diego was another Pinewood student. So I think just the community, it's just so ingrained in Pinewood, especially when you start out young. My brother was at Pinewood in 2nd grade, and his best friends are also people who came from Pinewood. And it's just a really cool culture that you don't see everywhere else. It's a collaborative culture, which was something that was really important to me. And continuing my education is finding schools that had that same collaborative culture and environment that I found at Pinewood.
Yeah, that's great to hear, because all of our students tend to go off into different colleges. It's not likely that most of them even will know somebody at Pinewood when they head into college, but you could still keep those connections and keep those friendships, even though you're going to different colleges. Speaking of colleges, I know you ended up choosing to go to Occidental College. What was your thought process when you were thinking about college choices?
I actually, probably very different than most Pinewood students, was almost very anti-college in the beginning. I was not excited about leaving. I was really nervous about going to college. And it wasn't until I found out, I could still play basketball if I go to school, that it got ingrained in me. I knew I wanted to be a doctor, and I came up with this like roundabout way that I could go into the Air Force and become a medic and then go through it that way, just avoiding that college process. But finding out that I could go to a school where it was a small school, still having that Pinewood feel, and be able to play basketball was what got me excited. That limited my college search down to a lot of the smaller liberal arts schools. And I'm so glad that's where I ended up because of the similarities to Pinewood, the ability to be involved in athletics and still be at an academically competitive school with strong programs that I needed in order to achieve my future goals. So I'm really glad that I ended up at Oxy. I had a great time there.
Yeah, you mentioned that you played basketball at Oxy. How did you manage your time between sports and the academics when you were a college student and clearly playing both competitive sports and at a highly academic school?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there was an adjustment period in the same way that most people have this adjustment period in their first year of college. It was a little bit doubled down on because of the intensity of having 3-hour practices every day. I will say that Pinewood prepared me for this really well, in that Pinewood basketball is a little bit more intense than a lot of the other high school programs. So I had already had experience with strength training, experience with balancing school and athletics in some ways that my college teammates didn't have. But it really came down to planning things out. And I think the time management skills, everyone who played college sports will tell you that they actually end up doing better in season than they do out of season with school, because you're forced to do what you need to do when you do it. The one thing that did take me some time was I didn't get involved with other extracurriculars in college until probably the end of my sophomore, beginning of my junior year. So that may have been a little delayed compared to other students who didn't play sports, but I think it was just a matter of figuring out how to put my time into what's needed before adding things on to that. And once I was able to add clubs on and add other volunteer experiences in my later time in college, it was a great time and I loved it so much. But it just took time getting there.
So what were some of the clubs that you did in college?
Yeah, one of my favorite clubs that I was a part of was called Peer Health Exchange. And it was a program that was actually started by some students in Boston, and then they sourced out. So there were 3 LA programs. And what we did was we took college-age students and they went to the charter high schools in the area that otherwise wouldn't have got any health education, sex ed, alcohol, drug awareness. So these schools were all around. I was in Northeast LA, so they were schools that were all around that area. And twice a week, I would go to these schools. It was usually during their PE class time and give them their entire sex ed. So this was one of my favorite things. I ended up getting very involved. I was teaching way more classes than I was supposed to because I had such a good time going and doing it.
That sounds wonderful. Did you have any standout moments from the court side when you were playing ball in college?
Yeah, one of my favorite college basketball moments was actually a tournament that we played in Vegas. We got to go to Vegas for this tournament, and coincidentally there was a few other players one who had played at Pinewood and one who had played with us on the Pinewood club team, and getting to watch their game beforehand and seeing both of them play the classic Pinewood way, hitting threes, having fist bumps, and then coming onto the court afterwards and having one of my, I would say, standout shooting games. And it was really cool to have the kind of Pinewood support there, but still be playing at the next level and seeing everyone all around doing the same thing, which was really cool.
Sounds fun. You talked about you knowing that early on you wanted to go into med school and you wanted to be a doctor. I guess going to Occidental College, which is a liberal arts college, is not necessarily the normal way of going into pre-med and doing med school. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of time where I was questioning that, where I was wondering if this was the right decision. But going to a liberal arts school, you have the same exposure to the same classes. Research opportunities may be a little different, maybe a little harder to come by, but if that's what you want to do, there's ways to do it. I was able to get involved with research in the biology department, and I actually think it might have been a little bit easier for me to get involved with research because there were fewer pre-med students. And coming into med school, where I went to med school at a UC, so I think 80% of my class also went to a UC scattered throughout the state. I was one of 3 liberal arts students, and hearing their experiences, it was a very different experience getting there. And as med school applications get more and more competitive, we're actually seeing more people come from liberal arts schools, more people come from very different majors as opposed to just the traditional bio, chem. Now we're having music majors, history majors. And I think it was just a more complete education experience, a more well-rounded process coming from a liberal arts school into med school than it would have been if I went to a research-heavy institution that produces people who end up going to med school.
Yeah, one of the Whisker principles is being well-rounded, right? So I think it translates really well for a Pinewood student to go into a small liberal arts school because it is that roundedness that makes our students stand out. And you're right, there's more than one way to get to at the end, whether that's med school or anything else. Thank you for sharing that. You and I have actually spoken over the last few years about sort of the importance of having mentorship. I know you as an alum really wanted to have that connection with older alums and I know you as now a slightly older alum want to be able to provide those guidance also to our younger alums. Tell me why you believe that this is so crucial and why you and I've been talking over the years about how we can go about setting up these programs so that there are mentorships and there's that connection through the generations of alums.
Yeah, I think my own experience going into college, going to med school was one of not having anyone in my immediate family who's done that, not having anyone who had been to med school, better yet, been to college to look up to. And I looked up to my oldest cousin, who was one of the first in our family to go to college for my undergrad mentoring. And through that process, realized that I wanted to be able to give that back. Coming into med school, there was a Pinewood alum who was 2 years older than me who paved that way for me. And I talked to her a lot and she helped me out. And seeing how influential that was for me made me want to pass that down to the younger kids at Pinewood, people who are looking to do that and, like me, don't really know what the pathway looks like. I think it's just important to be able to share that. And I do have a deep connection to Pinewood and I want to be able to help these kids and help them get to where they want to be. I've been able to do that a little bit through informal ways, just with the basketball team. Like I said, it's a big family. And any of the younger players who express interest in this, I've been able to talk to them, send them texts, FaceTime every once in a while for steps all through along the process, which has been really cool and really rewarding for me to be able to pass that on. So making that a little bit more easily accessible to people who maybe don't have that connection, where they don't have, oh, she played on the same team as me this many years ago, I can just reach out. Being able to make it to where they feel like they can just reach out, which is something that has been really cool to see in different steps, whether that was through Pinewood, through Oxy, or even just through mentoring that I was able to do at UCSD.
Yeah. I know you're currently helping one of our younger alums right now navigate the MCAT. I know when we first spoke of that, you yourself was trying to look for a mentor to give you some guidance on what that process even looks like. As the alumni director, I thank you for taking those initiatives and reaching out and helping our younger alums get there. So you are now back in the Bay Area. Tell me a little bit about what happened after sort of your journey from after Oxy and where you are now.
Yeah, so I graduated from Occidental in 2018. And after graduating, I moved back home. So my parents live in San Jose. So I moved back home here and was working at a biotech company in Sunnyvale while studying for the MCAT and applying for med school. I ended up taking 2 gap years while living at home and navigating, figuring out where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do next. In 2020, I started med school at UCSD. So starting at the peak of the pandemic, we had almost everything virtual and got to live in San Diego and experience med school there. Somewhere along my 3rd year of med school, I figured out that I wanted to go into OBGYN. And in my 4th year, I was able to do some away rotations. And my family's all still here. I have still a connection to a lot of the Pinewood students whose families also live here. So coming back to the Bay Area was a priority. I was able to do a month at Kaiser San Francisco and a month at Stanford. And during that was living at home. I went to a few Pinewood games, got to see some of these people, which was really cool for me. And I realized that I wanted to do residency in the Bay Area. And like you said, I'm back here now. So I matched at Kaiser San Francisco, where I'll be for 4 years doing an OBGYN residency. I am currently in my childhood home in San Jose, still figuring out where I'm going to live, but going to be in the Bay Area for the next 4 years.
Yeah. So what made you decide on OBGYN as your specialty?
I came into med school not really knowing what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to do something procedural, something with my hands. Because of the basketball background, I thought, oh, I'll do orthopedic surgery. It's very athletically involved. I've seen teammates go through ACL injuries. I've seen those surgeries. But I quickly realized that it wasn't for me. I liked the involvedness of surgery, but I missed the talking to patients. And on medicine services, I loved talking to patients, but I didn't like the fact that I wasn't doing anything with my hands. I wasn't able to do something and see a result. And then it was my first C-section that I was hooked. I saw the surgeon operating while talking to this awake patient, coming out with a baby. And it was just, it felt as if everything fell into line. And I was able to incorporate the surgery side of things with the medicine side of things. And then as an OBGYN, there's this inherent advocacy that's ingrained in the specialty. There's reproductive justice, there's women's health, and there's no way to separate that. So it really just combined all of my interests into one field, and I was hooked.
We're very excited for you to start in San Francisco and to be back in the Bay Area. I know recently you came back to campus and you spoke to our health science club. Tell me a little bit about that experience and what you thought of it.
Yeah, I was home for Christmas break and my mom had gotten one of the Pinewood alumni emails and it said that they were looking for people to talk. And she's, you should reach out to Miss Hudson, knowing that I had that connection with her. So it was really cool to come back to campus. It was awesome to see some of my old teachers. I got to catch up with teachers who taught me in 7th grade, which was really cool to come back and have them still remember me. And then talking to the kids was really cool. We didn't have a health sciences club while I was there. That would have been something that I would have been really interested in. So it was awesome to see not only the people coming out during their lunch break to listen, but asking really engaged questions. Everyone seemed to be paying attention and really want to learn from the experience, which was really cool. And it was nice to be able to share the fun parts, the exciting things, but also some of the difficulties and the decisions that had to be made throughout the process. And all of the students, as Pinewood students always are, were very engaged, asking questions, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Now, it was a great event. We actually had, I don't know if you knew, but we had some 7th graders that actually showed up for the talk, because I think there are a lot of kids who, think they want to be a doctor, right? Or they enjoy the science, but they're not quite sure what does that mean and what does that entail. And so for you to be able to share that experience with them and talked about how your journey to getting to where you are now is helpful for them, because I also think there are sometimes kids who think they want to be doctors just because they are good in science, but not quite sure what that actually really means. Thank you so much for coming back and sharing your experience and bringing Caitlin with you to share her experience in the whole process. I know the students really enjoyed it and really had a great time and came away with a better sense of what these things are for them in whatever stage they're at right now. So do you have goals and thoughts of what you would be doing within your 4 years at Kaiser and beyond?
Yeah, I am so excited to start. Going into intern year residency is just this big change in responsibility. And I think throughout your 4th year, you feel like you're ready for it. So I'm just excited to learn. It's going to be a big learning curve and getting to take full responsibility of my patients and I guess figure out even more detailed of what I want to do. In terms of beyond residency, I do think that I want to do a fellowship. Right now, if you had to ask me, I would say that I want to do a gynecologic oncology fellowship. So going in and further specializing within the OBGYN field to focusing more on the gynecologic cancers, more on the surgery side, more on the chemotherapy side of things. But who knows? In the same way that, you come into med school thinking one thing and come out something different, I am very open to that happening through this process. I do want to stay in the Bay Area. I think being back here is so great. Having my family here, my nieces and nephews, everything around is something that I hope I can continue and hope I can build a practice out here.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. And I love your curiosity and your flexibility, which is what led you down this path. Because I think your path to med school isn't necessarily norm in terms of what I think people think they ought to be doing. And just the fact that you were open to whatever that possibility is and really just chasing your passion, I think speaks a lot to who you are as a person and also the support system of Pinewood for all of those things. Thank you so much for your time, Kendahl. It's been fantastic to chat with you. I thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And that is another inspiring episode of Roots and Branches that comes to a close. We hope you enjoyed this journey through the diverse paths our alums have taken, from their roots at Pinewood to the branches that have reached far and wide. These stories remind us that our time at Pinewood School was just the beginning of a lifelong adventure, and the connections we forge here continue to shape our lives in unexpected ways. Thank you for tuning in and for being a part of the celebration of our shared heritage. Remember to subscribe, share, and stay connected as we continue to explore the ever-growing branches of the Pinewood alumni community. Until next time, this is Roots and Branches, where Pinewood's legacy continues to blossom.